watching Gearz, brought to you by Holly Performance Products, fuel your passion, and Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
If you're a car person, every day can be an adventure because you never quite know what you're going to see out there. I mean, there's the typical cars and trucks and SUVs, but every once in a while, if you're really lucky and the planets align just right, you might catch that rare unicorn of the automotive world, the supercar. And that brings up the question, what exactly is a supercar? How does it compare to a muscle car or a sports car? What does that animal even look like? Well, you might be surprised to find that these are not easy questions to answer because everybody seems to have a different concept of what the term supercar even means. Is it about speed? Is it about the styling? Is it about the exoticness? Is it the cost? The nationality? The racing pedigree? Well, the answer to all those questions could be yes, no, or maybe, depending on your perspective. So today we're going to take a look at the evolution of the supercar and see what kind of vehicles get to wear that title. Now, the term supercar didn't start appearing until sometime in the 90s, and it was usually associated with a certain kind of car and a certain kind of person. But that doesn't mean that they weren't around before then. And a great example of an early supercar was the Pantera from the 70s. With its Italian coachwork and mid-engine design and V8 power, the Pantera was fast, exotic, and expensive. And people loved it. All things that tend to identify a supercar. But it was also very cramped. No, really, I'm comfortable. Hard to drive, and it tended to overheat, and it had very fragile, delicate bodywork that was easy to damage. That doesn't sound so great. But it was trend-setting, and it opened the door for the modern supercar to be born. And today, virtually every manufacturer produces what they call a supercar. So are they right? Well, we're going to let you be the judge. The first criteria that most people think a supercar should have is unique styling that makes it stand out from anything else on the road. However, what that actually means, that's open to interpretation. Some think it's the shape of the body. Just look at it. Supercar. It's a Lamborghini. Others like to use wings and vents. Have you seen the size of my wing? On the GT, the air flows through the body. We have air intake vents all over, we have ground effects, we have a front splitter. You got a supercar. For some, it's the placement of the engine. It's like they took some mojo from the original Pantera, threw in a little bit of Ferrari, came out with the first mid-engine Corvette. It's a supercar. This V10 says Lamborghini. It's a classic front-engine supercar with side pipes. For others, it's about elegance. Now, there was a time Rolls-Royce was just luxury. Now it's a luxury supercar. Some insist it has to carry 4 passengers. Isn't that a taxi cab? Others insist only 2 can ride at a time. This is a sleeper supercar. 4 doors. Only if it's a taxi. So you think 4 doors makes it a taxi, huh? It's the fastest taxi you'll ever see. That's a taxi cab. The next criteria that a supercar must have is blistering performance and top speed. Now, what that top speed should be, well, that's open for debate. But most people agree that if the car won't run over 180, it's not a supercar. It'll do that in style. 180, you're kidding, right? We're just getting started at that. What's super about less than 180? No, 180, do you want the windows up or down? But the engine it uses to get there, nobody can agree on that. Some do it with 12 cylinders. Others think a V8 is the way to go. Some split the difference and go with a V10. Then some think that a V6 with multiple turbos is the way to go over 200 miles an hour. One thing's for sure, none of these cars were made to run at the rear of the pack. And that indicates a supercar for sure. I thought supercars had to go 200 miles an hour. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where we are digging into the evolution of the supercar and what exactly constitutes a supercar. Now, so far we've talked about styling, we've talked about performance, we've talked about top speed, we've even talked about engines. And we found that most people end up arguing with themselves about what really is a true supercar. So we're going to keep going, see if we can't shed some more light on the crazy world of the supercar. The next important point is that a supercar has got to be exotic, whether in technology or unique features or just curb appeal. And once again, everybody takes a little different approach to this. For some, it's all about the doors and the way they open. Oh, really? You want to talk doors? For others, it's about what happens when you get inside those doors. Well, they've got their gull-wing doors. This is the Rolls-Royce Wraith. It's got suicide doors, but it's also delightfully British. So it's got its own umbrella. Our doors also do this. Yeah, those doors are cool. A lot cooler when we invented them. Some spend their money on doors, others going fast. Still others prefer to flaunt their technology in displays and gauges and paddle shifters. Now, for some people, the supercar is not just about speed and power, it's also about luxury. So this car here doesn't just have 4 seats and 4 doors. It also has complete workstations back here. So if you're busy on your commute, want to work on your computer, you do that. You have video monitors on the back of all the seats. And if you don't think that's cool enough at 180 miles an hour, well, let's just go into this console here, see what else we have. We have our own bottle of wine at 180 miles an hour, yeah. And others prefer to focus theirs in the suspension, the braking, and the engine for a purer driving experience. Another question that comes up is, does a supercar need to have a racing pedigree? And does it matter whose name is on it? If you're talking racing pedigree, just look up the Corvette. Just look it up. Mercedes and McLaren, what else is there to say? Well, there was that Ford versus Ferrari thing. You know how that all turned out. Man, it is all about the name. Lamborghini, Lamborghini. Say it with me, Lamborghini. Okay, all together now, Lamborghini. Let me put it to you this way. Ford, Dodge, Mercedes, Ferrari. Forget about the Lamborghini, guys. Ferrari. Well, it's Mopar and Carroll Shelby. And finally, there's the cost. Does a supercar have to be expensive? And if so, how expensive does it have to be? It's a Rolls Royce. Nothing on it's cheap. Was that a legitimate question? If you're worried about price, buy a Viper or a Vet. I can get 2 or 3 of these for the price of one of those. At this point, everybody's making good stuff. The trick is to make it affordable and reliable and fast. What was the question again? So, as you can see, with so many options out there, you might not even agree with yourself on what constitutes a supercar these days. But they all share some common ground. They all are extremely fast. They all are loaded with new technology. They're all exotic in some sort of way. And unfortunately, they're all expensive. But there's a silver lining here. Because with all the supercars being built, that means you have a better chance of seeing one, possibly driving one, maybe even owning one day. And that is something to look forward to.
And now, Sealtek, brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, helping restore the car of your dreams.
You know, most people realize how important weather stripping is on a car or truck. It's that little barrier that allows panels to seal against the body. It allows your windows to roll up and down and seal, and it allows your doors to seal properly. And since it's made of rubber, well, you know eventually it's going to deteriorate and you are going to have to replace it. And since replacing weather stripping is not the topic of conversation to most car guys, a lot of people are shooting blind when they have to do it. So to help people out, we have put together a list of the 7 most common mistakes that you can make when you're dealing with weather stripping. We're going to deal with 2 of them today. The first one is removing the original weather stripping and throwing it away before you're ready to replace it. This is a problem because your original rubber makes a great reference point and pattern for laying out your new rubber and making sure you have the right replacement. Now, this is especially important if you're working on something odd like this and direct replacement rubber is not available. Your only option here is to match it up with something out of a universal catalog, and that is impossible to do without a sample. Now, the good news is you don't have to keep all of your old weather stripping because it usually comes out in pieces. All you need is a 3 or 4 inch sample of every piece on the vehicle. This way you have a perfect cross section to match up to a replacement piece. Just make sure they're well marked because this stuff does start to all look alike. Mistake number 2, not prepping the application surface properly. Now, for some reason, a lot of people think that weather strip adhesive is like silicone sealant, and it will cover a multitude of bad prep. That's not the way it works. Weather strip adhesive has one job, and that's to make a bond between the rubber and the metal surface. And any kind of goo, or grease, or dirt, or rust, or flaking metal, or any kind of nasty paint will keep that from happening. So make sure that you scrape off any old sealant or rubber and repair any rust holes. And make sure that any bare metal is painted and protected.
There we go.
Only then are you ready to install new weather stripping.
And now, Wiring Tech, brought to you by Painless Performance Products. American made, American proud.
If you're into building cars and trucks at all, you know how things change and evolve. You see it in the tools that we use, and the aftermarket parts that we have, and even the motors that we use. And one area that seems to be changing the most is wiring and electrical systems. They seem to be getting more and more complicated, especially the more popular that fuel injection becomes. And that has created some issues for restorers and hot rodders and car enthusiasts. For example, back in the day, if you were restoring an old wiring harness, most of your plugs looked like this. Big and bulky, they only had a few wires running to them, and they had the big blade connectors. So it was really easy to get an aftermarket pigtail and just splice it in. Well, not anymore, because modern engines have modern wiring harnesses with computers and sensors and big plugs that have all kinds of wires running to them. Not to mention all the aftermarket ignition boxes and accessories that we all like to use. So you need to be able to disassemble these plugs and reassemble them so you can move the wires around and wire things up the way you want to do it. And using a screwdriver here is not going to cut it. So what do? Do you cut and splice all these wires? No, there's a special tool for this. Check it out. This is called a terminal release kit, and as you can see, this is a whole assortment of tools with special prongs and tips that look like some sort of weird torture devices, but they're not. They're just the opposite. They'll remove the torture of dealing with wiring plugs. Here's how they work. The metal wiring connectors are designed with a little metal tang either on top or on the sides that snaps in place when you insert the connector into the plug, and it keeps the wire and the connector from pulling back out. The terminal release tool is designed to slide in the front of the plug and depress the tang so you can slide the wire and the connector out of the plug with no damage to either part. The large assortment of tools is necessary due to all the different metal connectors that are being used out there. This allows you to change the connector or the wire to your new configuration and still retain a factory-style connection. You know, sometimes the simplest tools make the biggest difference. And when you're dealing with modern wiring harnesses, those tools will make all the difference in the world.
And now, Parts Bin.
When it comes to upgrading a newer vehicle, there's certain things like a tuner or an exhaust system or an air intake that can really help the performance. The problem is you need to search websites and catalogs and all kinds of places to find the parts that you need, and then you got to make them all work together. Now, Holly said forget about all that, and they came out with the proven package in 3 different power levels. For example, this is a level 1 for a Mustang, and as you can see, it's got a Flowmaster American Thunder axle-back exhaust system. You have a Flowmaster Delta Force air filter and a Diablo Sport tuner. Now, these will give you the power and the torque and the sound that you're after without breaking your budget. And if it's not enough power, you can step up to a level 2 or a level 3. Best part is these are designed to bolt in right in your garage, and there's no more searching. One source, Holly, and the proven package system. Most people know that steel rubber makes some of the finest weather stripping in the industry. It's a super durable, closed-cell sponge rubber that's UV, ozone, and wear resistant. But most people also know that installing this weather stripping with the proper adhesive can be a bit of a challenge, especially in those upside-down areas like the trunk. So to help you out, Steel Rubber has come out with trunk weather stripping with the peel and stick option. Now, just like it sounds, the adhesive is already in place. You just pull the tape and you're ready to put it in place. Now, this is not just some cheap double-sided tape. This is 3M heat-applied adhesive. So if you have prepped your surface properly, this stuff is going to stick and it's not going to come off. So you not only get top quality trunk weather stripping, but you also can install it in just a few minutes. And Steel Rubber is the only place you're going to get this. You know, there's an old saying that any company that becomes stagnant rapidly becomes irrelevant. And that's especially true in the high-performance world. You got to keep moving forward. That's why a company like MSD would take their legendary 6AL box and make it fully digital, so you have more spark energy and more control than even the original box had. That's also why they would come out with this Blaster SS coil that'll give you up to 40,000 volts when used with that box. It's also why they came out with the Pro Billet distributor, so you could drop this in and get more spark energy than those old points distributors and those old HEIs. And of course, we all know how important the wires are. Now, the big question you might have here is like, I thought MSD stuff was all red. What's with all this black stuff? Well, MSD thought you might like the option of getting this stuff in the traditional red or in this new black look. That way you have the power that you want and your engine doesn't get stagnant or irrelevant in the looks department.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from James, and he's from Minnesota, and he always wanted a square body truck. Now, the good news is he had several. The bad news is none of them were complete. He said he just had a bunch of good parts on a bunch of different trucks. So check this out. He started putting a truck together. Started with an 86 cab. He put it on a 76 highboy frame. Then he gutted the cab and started restoring it. He took the glass and the dash out of a 77. The front part of the bed is a 73. The bed sides are from an 80. And then up front, the inner fenders are off an 84. The front fenders are off a 74. And he can't quite figure out what the hood is off of. It's like the Johnny Cash song, One Piece at a Time, man. This is great. Now, he said for the engine, he put in a 454 with a 400. And he said this is a 25-year project. So you talk about perseverance, man. But this is what hot rodders do. We put together the vehicle we've always wanted using those parts. And here's what it looks like finished. He finally got it done. Now, he calls it the Heinz 57 truck. I like the one piece at a time truck better, but Heinz 57 works. Man, great project. So to recognize such a cool project, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. James, we're going to give you one of these tubing notchers because I guarantee you're going to need it one of these days. And then we're going to give you a gift card from Holly to get you some parts for that truck. We're going to give you one of our new V8 Interceptor shirts so you can wear that with pride. And we're going to give you a project planning book. Actually, for that, we might need to give you 2 because you use so many parts. That'll keep track of your project, and then of course we're going to give you a Sergeant Rock diecast. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you want to get in on this, get your project featured on the show, man, you got to send it to us. Go to our website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into what are you working on. The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation so you can stream any of our episodes commercial free. Also, don't forget to check us out on Amazon Prime, where you can watch past and current seasons of Gearz and check out our new show, Stacey David's Restoration Series. Finally, don't forget to like us on Facebook and Instagram so you can get some behind-the-scenes footage of our weekly web series, Shifting Gears. And if you're a radio person, make sure you check out our new podcast, Tales of a Gearhead. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Hopefully this inspires you to get out there and work on something. Even if all you have is a pile of parts, it's all good. And do yourself a favor. While you're out there working in the garage, pull up the old Johnny Cash song, One Piece at a Time, and listen to it. It'll give you the mind of a hot rodder. We'll see you next time.